Welcome everybody to the March edition of the Ubuntu Desktop Team Indaba. We have a lovely topic for you this month, which is UB ports and Ubuntu Touch and Mir, which is some of the background. So without further ado, I'm Heather, by the way, your normal host. And there's Alfred here from UB ports, and we have Alan from Mir. Yeah, so I just want to remind all of the watchers that they can ask questions, and I'll do my best to watch for good questions that we can answer. But yeah, so I wanted to start with, hi Lucy, wanted to start with Alan. How long have you been working on Mir, and what's your kind of history? How did you get here?
Okay, so I've been working on Mir for over a decade now. So my history. Well, from the beginning of this century, I guess, I was working in various companies, helping them improve their development processes, what's typically called agile processes, and introducing that, and helping improve code bases. And Canonical had an issue with a code base, Compiz, which some people might remember from Ubuntu Unity. And someone on that Canonical desktop team knew of me and introduced me, and I got a 3-month contract to help with Compiz that got extended a few times. And then Canonical was starting up another project for a replacement for Unity, and asked me if I would join that and become permanent. And that's where I am now.
Nice. And Alfred, same to you. How did you get involved with like the Ubuntu Touch community, and what's your role there?
Well, I'll take it a few years back. Right when the Ubuntu Phone project started, actually, I was at high school back then. I was a very big fan of Ubuntu back then already, and I contributed to Unity 7 even some things that popped up during the 1404 thing, the LTS release, right before it dropped, or right before it released rather, and a few years after that, like 1 year after the community took over the development of the whole OS, I really got into the interest of having it on my own phone. I was a Selfish OS user back then, but I really wanted to have Ubuntu Touch just to find out how it feels and how it looks, and it stuck. And I stuck with the community, and I really enjoyed there. The people are nice. So and great developers also, and the whole thing just kept me there, right? So I really enjoyed doing the Xperia X, the Sony phone port that I did, and then I wanted to make an application for that phone, and it turns out that the phone app needed some changes in the OS to actually work properly. And I then got over to the real development and efforts of Ubuntu Touch and whatever UBports did back then already. So yeah, I pretty much have my fingers everywhere in the whole project, including the hardware abstractions. So I really enjoy that. I enjoyed so much that I really wanted to learn a few new things too. So it's a great thing for me personally.
That's great. Yeah. Do you have a favorite device, maybe like a daily driver that you use Ubuntu Touch on?
A lot of them, actually. I had 2 of them, and well, let's say 3. 3 most recent devices that I can think of that I personally like are the Fairphone 4 specifically, because it has the display out functionality and allows to run a full desktop, a full like workstation type of deal off of a phone's hardware with mouse, keyboard, and a monitor, as the conversion stream already started to put on the stage, right? Then there is the Pixel 3a. This is my personal daily driver right now. It's affordable. It's really great to use. Its performance, even though it's so not cheap. It's because it's so affordable. It's so flabbergasting that the performance is so good. And the Jing Pad, my personal favorite tablet right now, which also has a keyboard case, which allows you to run the whole desktop also off of the tablet hardware. So this whole thing, this whole ecosystem works pretty well, I have to admit.
That's so cool. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for that. Well, now I'd like to kind of take a step back and take a look at some of the foundational aspects of Ubuntu Touch. So let's look at Mir. And a lot of people might not even know what Mir is, or might have, thought that Mir is dead. What is this Mir talk? So Alan has a short slide deck to kind of show everybody, I think, that will help clear up some of those misconceptions. Does that sound good?
Yeah. Okay. So, Mir gets talked about a bit on the internet, and many of the things that get said are wrong. And I usually ignore it. But a little while ago, I got fed up enough with it that I put together this slide deck. So if we go to the next slide, so first myth, a lot of people think Mir is dead. Mir is an alternative to Wayland, and of course there can only be one, and Mir lost out there, or that Mir is only for the Internet of Things. Also that Mir is only available on Ubuntu. Now, there's a bit of truth to all of these, but if we move to the next slide, you first have to understand that Mir is just a library for writing graphical shells for GNU Linux systems, and it incorporates what in the X world would have involved multiple components, a window manager, a compositor, and a display server. So if we go for the first thing, Mir is dead. The reason people believe that Mir was dead is that it was associated with the Ubuntu Phone OS and the Unity 8 shell. And Canonical stopped investing in those projects in 2017. And quite naturally, a lot of people assume that that was the end of all the projects involved, but it's not. Canonical is still developing Mir, and I'll mention a few things we're doing with it later on. And the community, represented by Alfred here, is developing Ubuntu Touch and the Lumiri shell. Note that the name has changed from Unity 8 to Lumiri. Mir or Wayland, they're different things. So early versions of Mir had its own inter-process communication mechanism, and some people are only aware of one Wayland implementation, typically Mutter. But Mir now uses Wayland for inter-process communications. There are many Wayland compositors, and I'm not going to mention them all here. And the Mir team also develops a conformance test suite for Wayland compositors, not just for Mir. So this diagram should put things into context. At the top, we have a couple of applications. In the middle, we have a server. In the middle of the server is Mir. The server itself could be Lumiri or Ubuntu Frame or many other things that have been built with Mir. And the lines between the applications and the server are what Wayland represents. It's just a wire protocol, effectively. And next slide. Mir is not just for the Internet of Things. We have products based on Mir for the Internet of Things, typically Ubuntu Frame and its predecessor, Mir Kiosk. But Mir was designed for Unity 8, which was running on phones and tablets and on the desktop. And its current incarnation, Lumiri, has been demonstrated on to my knowledge, at least Manjaro and Debian. And Mir itself has a proof of concept desktop shell called Miriway. Next slide. And Mir is not Ubuntu only. It was Ubuntu only in the early days. There was a patch required to Mesa, and that patch never got upstreamed. So only Ubuntu carried it as a distro patch. But that time has long passed. Mir now works with stock Mesa, and it's in the archive for Ubuntu, Fedora, Debian, Arch, Alpine, and Nixos that I'm aware of at the moment. So to summarize, Mir is alive, it is Wayland, it is cross-distro, and it is convergent. Thank you.
Nice. Yeah, I certainly appreciate that. That's great. Now, if we want to, kind of take it a step further and then take a look at some Ubuntu Touch stuff, Alfred has prepared a little presentation with some very nice pictures.
Yeah, it's mostly about what you can do actually with Ubuntu Touch nowadays, at least, right? So you have to remember that many applications started a few years ago, but a few of the newer ones, they have been started like very recently, and they're good. They're really good. I like them. So you don't have to take my word for it, but here is a little introduction of what you can expect nowadays on Ubuntu Touch. So we first have a Spotify client called Feutify. Allows you to log into your Spotify account and listen to your music. We have Ghost Cloud, which is Nextcloud and OwnCloud and photo backup solution for your phone. You download files, you upload files, and you back up photos automatically when you're connected to a Wi-Fi. And the next one is Passes. So we have a little application should you ever have to take a flight and do everything with the phone, including showing your pass. This is a solution for that. We have a little recording application, so audio recorder, just tiny little tools that make the use case of a phone actually usable. Next slide, please. Then this I really like. This is the identification of plants. So we have a plant app. So you can take a photo of a plant, and it will, in the background, try to find out what this plant actually is, how it's called, what are the names of the various plants. So really interesting thing that someone came up with and provided in the store for us.
Super
then
cool.
There is, oh yeah, and there's also IsoDrive, one of my things that I'll use for installing Linux distributions onto a computer. So you download an ISO file from your browser, you open IsoDrive, you select the ISO, you connect the phone to your desktop or laptop, and then you can install your Ubuntu ISO onto your computer, right? Without having to flash a USB thumb drive. And it's just working pretty well, at least for the 33 likes that have popped up in the open store. So people really seem to enjoy that thing. We also have two navigation solutions. So we have Pure Maps and we have UNAV, each with their respective backgrounds. So UNAV is really predominantly an Ubuntu Touch app, but also there is Pure Maps, which is coming from Sailfish OS. And Sailfish OS really has its own look and feel, and they made it work with Ubuntu Touch also, which is very nice to see, and it works pretty well. It's my personal favorite, but UNAV is also very great, and depending on how you feel like it, you might prefer one of them, or you like both. I don't know. Next slide, please. Yeah, there are many more applications and tools that you can download from the store. So we have Jitsi for video conferencing. We have various Matrix clients. We have time tracking. We have games. We have development tools. And because I don't know why, but I had to do wine, for example. This is plus box 64 and box 86 because those allow to run Intel applications on your ARM Ubuntu Touch phones and ARM Ubuntu Touch tablets, which is sort of similar to the Fruity company's Rosetta tool in theory, which is kind of an inspiration, but we have really great things in the open store overall. Some of them are proprietary. Most of them, the vast majority of them, is open source and free software. So, and those applications that are not confined can be reviewed by anyone. So you're free to take a look at the apps. You're free to contribute to them, and yeah. So,
Out of curiosity, are there any apps that developers can put up and then charge for?
Not right now. So, and I don't think there's something on the plate for that. So we have talked about this, but it's hard to get right. So, yeah. So next one is the convergent tablet experience. So this wonderful Jink pad that I have here, which allows to like open it up and use the keyboard and the trackpad, which turns then into a desktop-esque usage scenario, a use case. And here we have a little application that allows virtual machines to run. So Ubuntu Touch is capable of running QEMU, nice. including OpenGL acceleration using VirGL renderer. And it's great. I actually managed to compile a few components on the VM in a reasonable amount of time. And it's functioning so well that I can only suggest everyone to take a look at this and play around with it. Should your device support KVM?
That's cool. What about LXC containers?
LXC containers, they are so it's complicated, but we are already running LXC containers with Halium, which is a hardware abstraction layer. And yeah, long story short, we already are deploying LXC in the rootfs, in the whole system, but right now, there's no easy way to set them up. For that, we have Libertine, which is abstracting away those LXC, LXD, and truths for the user so that the user just has the applications and gets everything that they need, and including apt support, which we usually don't have on the rootfs. So, yeah, the next one, the power of a desktop in your pocket. So if you look closely enough, you can see in the back, the window in the back, it says Fairphone 4. And this is Qt Creator as a development environment running a little test application in a console. So you really are able to do certain things with your phone nowadays when they're connected to a monitor, keyboard, and mouse that are not easily possible with other solutions and other products and projects. So here's something to look at, right? We have Wayland support thanks to the Mir team and their efforts on improving Wayland support and making it work with the whole thing or fitting so well into the whole experience that Wayland support really works so well that you can actually use LibreOffice or, as you can see here, VS Codium also on the phone hardware or on a desktop, which is quite good. I wanted to say insane, but that's an understatement almost. Legacy applications are also possible due to the way that X-Wayland and our little fork of it that patches in Android driver support into the Wayland X-Wayland source code. It allows to really run GIMP and other types of applications, including some games even on some certain devices. So you can run OpenGL and non-OpenGL applications through Xwayland on Ubuntu Touch too, which is great to see. You
Nice.
probably noticed I really like it, right? And if you like it too, and you think I want it all, then there is definitely something for you to take a look at, and that is the few resources that we have that allow you to contribute to the project, to enjoy the project as a user, to write applications, and those are on the next slide. There are those five links. We have ubuntutouch.io, which is also showcasing the various devices that we support, both on Xennial and on Focal-based Ubuntu Touch. We have the ubiports.com website where you can find more about the community. We have our GitLab. We have Twitter and Mastodon where you can follow us for updates. And yeah, so I hope you enjoy just as much as I do what you just saw. So
yeah. Well, with that, there's an interesting question in the chat about TV.
So it's almost as if the stars have aligned correctly so that I can share a little idea that has popped up, and that is the idea of an Ubuntu or Ubuntu Touch or Lumiri like base that allows to run the Lumiri shell on a TV, and it's not just an idea anymore. Let's just put it that way. So I have implemented a few things here and there. I've toyed around with a few things, and if anyone is interested in like the idea of Ubuntu on a TV, whether it being running off of a little TV box that you can connect to your TV, or on a TV itself, should you ever manage to do that, I would really like to get in touch with you, because this is, if we can pull it off, then that would be quite the crown to put on someone's head here, because the TV is probably the last missing thing for big screen things, and the TV use case also works with Mir, and yeah, Lumiri should also work on the TV just as much as it does on a phone, on a tablet, and on a desktop.
Well, I have to jump in here and say we beat you to it. We can, one of the things we have is Ubuntu Frame, which will run on all sorts of embedded devices with a screen on them. And with Ubuntu Frame, we can actually package up Kodi, which is a well-known PVR, TV integrator. And that will all run nicely in whatever device you tend to decide to build with that.
Yeah, the general idea yeah. Okay, the crown, you deserve the crown then. I personally think, I do think that Lumiri also has a place on that, so deserves a little bit of airtime, literally, on a TV. So maybe it works out. And if you like Lumiri and if you would like to see it, because, for example, on Android TV, Kodi is also an app. So you can download it, you can install it as an app, use it, and who knows what people come up with, right? So it's just an interesting idea, and well, a little bit more than an idea by now. But if you are interested, just join the Telegram channel on Ubiports or ask around where you can find me, and we'll find something for everyone, right?
Yeah. Now, both of you have mentioned Lumiri a couple of times. And there's a common misconception that Lumiri is just Ubuntu Unity. So, Alan, can you clear up that?
Okay, yeah. So I mentioned before that many years ago I was involved in Ubuntu Unity as someone trying to sort out the code base for the compositor that they were using. And Ubuntu Unity is an X11 based desktop that Canonical came out with for some time ago, but people loved the ideas. And a lot of the same ideas were being brought forward into their next generation product based on Mir, which they were calling Unity 8, because the previous release of Unity had been Unity 7. I think this was a bit of accidental naming because they are entirely different architectures. One's based on X11, one's based on Wayland, and they have a lot of different components making them up. So after Canonical was no longer working on it, the UBports community decided to change the name and avoid all the confusion with Ubuntu Unity by calling it Lumiri. I don't know how they arrived at that name, but you know, maybe someone else here has an idea.
I personally don't. I would have to ask around, but I really would like to actually know it myself as well, because I just remembered back then when that rename thing happened. I just came back from work, joined the development sync, the development meeting that we regularly have, and they say, "Oh yeah, Lumirian. What is that thing? What are you talking about? Oh, we renamed the shell. Oh, so, but the rename also, the funny thing, the most confusing thing was actually the Telegram chat with the Unity game engine, people annoying us, making us angry almost, and to the point where it said, okay, let's rename that, just as Alan said. And so, yeah, that's pretty much my point of view.
Okay. Well, speaking of names of things, what's Ubuntu Touch OTA 25? I saw a recent blog post about this. Alfred.
It's a coincidence that we have released two releases within a week almost, and the OTA 25 is Xennial based, so 1604. And it's still it's been released for the reason that there are many devices out there that probably will not get a focal release anytime soon, if ever. And we wanted to give it a little, like, rest in peace, you've done well, right? Yeah. Which one is that?
That's the Nexus 5.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, that's maybe someone is working on something. I don't know. Hopes, but don't expect anything.
Okay, well, if you want one that's definitely not going to get it, let's see. Yeah, that one.
So yeah, but we have also released Ubuntu Touch based on Vocals 2004 already. So just this week we released Ubuntu Touch based on 2204, the first OTA. So we call it OTA 1 again. And it features a few little things that haven't been in there before, like improvements to the desktop mode and improvements to, like, the visual experience, the feel of the shell when you use it on a phone, and the fluidity of it. So there have been two releases this week, and the OTA 25 is basically our thanks, Daniel, for providing us what we needed for a long time. But Focal is where the future is heading. So and
Okay.
we haven't decided though whether to go to 2204 or 2404 or whatever we are going to come up with. So there have been a few ideas, but we are not sure yet.
Okay, so the Ubuntu Touch releases are typically based off of LTSs. You don't track the non-LTS releases. I mean, that makes sense. It's a volunteer community. Yeah, ain't nobody got time to do all of that. So yeah, I'd be curious to hear, when it's going to happen for Jammy. But like you said, it's not set in stone yet. So we have a question for you, Alfred, in the chat here. Do you know if we can run nested containers inside Libertine containers?
Well, Libertine containers are, right now, they're just truths. So whatever a truth in the sense that, it's a fake root and using bubble wrap to do the things that it does. I would have to look into what bubble wrap specifically does here, but I don't think they're allowing for nested containers. For that, we would have to make use of something more sophisticated or actually fitting for the purpose, and those would be LXC and LXD, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. Another question, how is Ubuntu Touch different from a vanilla Ubuntu?
Well, the obvious one is the shell, right? So the way that the desktop looks, but also the applications are slightly different. So, and also the way that hardware integration works is a little bit different from a typical GNU/Linux stack. For that, we use Halium on Android devices, and on mainline devices like the Pi phone, it also works with the regular Ubuntu kernels and hardware enablements that Canonical usually works on. So it is very flexible in that sense. So
Yeah.
we have ways to make Ubuntu, the things in the Ubuntu archive, run on phone hardware where it was not initially thought of to be put, right? So
yeah. So tell me a little bit more about Halium and how that's used to help run Ubuntu on Android devices.
So as I mentioned earlier, the Halium thing is actually a LXC container, which allows to run a very slimmed down, so very minimal Android container, which runs services for the radio, for modem, for a few hardware enablement things like the sensors. And it also contains the OpenGL drivers for actually drawing things on the screen and all the hardware composer bits. So Android isms, basically. And Halium makes those Android isms available to a typical GNU/Linux environment. And the really great thing that one of the many reasons why I like Mir personally is the way that they did the Android integration in the first place. So the Android driver platform is a very great thing. So the way that it is abstracted away, I truly enjoy the way that it works. And it's so good that the performance, it's not lagging behind Android. In fact, I would almost say it's close to better than that.
Nice.
Because we are not using Java VMs or something like that. We are using native code. The applications are running natively. The whole OS is written in, or most of it is written in C++ and with Qt in mind, using Qt for the UI. So yeah, those are a few things.
Well, that's another question: is why Qt and not GTK?
Can I back up a question first?
Yeah.
You were asking about the differences between vanilla Ubuntu and Ubuntu Touch. And there's a few decisions that were made to make it more suitable for the phone environment, such as a read-only root file system, which is now becoming popular with things like Ubuntu Core and Silverblue, Fedora.
Mm-hmm.
But have already been embedded in this environment for a while. And it also had one of the more interesting app packaging formats known as Click, which is a predecessor to Snap and much along the same lines of Snap and Flatpak. So it's all a very interesting piece of work.
Mm. And also thinking of that, the whole development experience. So we have things that are, so the whole, it's almost like its own ecosystem, its own universe, but also within another ecosystem. So it's like a sub thing, right? But then again, we have tools that are very specific to Click and to Ubuntu Touch, the use cases that Ubuntu Touch wants to provide. And those are, they looked differently back then when it was still a canonical product. And those are for the developers out there who are really focusing on apps. Developers who really work on apps, they might be quite familiar with an integrated tool chain like Qt Creator in a container. You just spawn the creator and you write your apps and test them, debug them. So those are details, but experience-wise, it's a slightly different approach to what the desktop vanilla Ubuntu thing really usually does.
Yeah. So kind of, yeah, continuing on that same thread, differences between vanilla Ubuntu and Touch. I know we're using Mir instead of Mutter. What is, well, Alan, could you summarize some of the differences between like Mir and the typical Mutter and GNOME shell that we see on vanilla Ubuntu 2?
Yeah, sure. Well, GNOME shell you see on your desktop is a composite of a large number of different components that do different jobs. You've got docs, you've got backgrounds, you've got launchers, you've got a compositor and window manager in Mutter. So Mir is a library for building compositors, window managers, and it's more like something like WL Roots than it is like Mutter. If you wanted to build something like Mutter, you're probably looking closer to something like the Mirrorway shell, which takes Mir and provides a default executable to which you can attach docs and launchers and backgrounds and build something like that. So it's part of something equivalent to part of Mutter in that it makes things possible to build, but it's also not designed for a specific desktop environment. Mutter is very much involved and integrated with the GNOME shell and with the way that GTK works. Whereas Mir will work with GTK components, it will work with Qt components, it will work with Electron components, it will work with Flutter, it will work with whatever.
Okay.
Because it's unopinionated in that sense. It's got good ideas about its domain, how to put things on pixels onto the screen, but it's very happy to work with anything out there.
Very nice. Would you say that Mir is more of a lightweight solution for like IoT devices like phones?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, cool. I do want to go back to this question of like Alfred for Ubuntu Touch, why Qt instead of GTK?
Well, I mentioned the development experience earlier, and back when I do think the reason, I mean, I'm just someone who joined the project later on, but as far as I understood, the whole thing with GTK and possibly other toolkits out there was that they were not using the hardware to its full potential. So GTK back then was very much just wasting energy, just putting pixels on the screen. And also, there was no integrated development environment as with Qt Creator or GNOME Builder nowadays. And the whole package, the whole, for lack of a better word, experience, pretty much revolved around Qt, because Qt was very good at being like this tool chain thing that you can write an application with, but also a shell with, and together with Qt Mir and Mir in working in tandem with or playing around with them each other together. So they dance with each other, they have a fun time, and they provide everything that the user expects from each experience, whether it being a desktop, a tablet, or a phone. So Qt really is that good, was that good back then already with 5.0. And I think that's when Canonical really started to make use of it more and more until Unity 8, the predecessor to Lemiri, the name just popped up and made it so good that you couldn't get the same performance any other way, at least on a phone.
Okay, cool. We have a question from our Portugal friends. Alfred, do you know when the image server will have Xenial images and apps on the open store for Xenial?
There haven't been too many ideas thrown around yet, but at least the CI for building those images is getting disabled, shut down as we speak, probably. If not, then within a couple of days. And people are probably going to stay on Xenial, or are able to stay on Xenial for a long time, including the open store, the app store. And there's nothing set in stone yet. But it will be available for some time.
Okay. And Portugal also has answered our question about Lomiri.
Yeah.
I don't know who Dalton is, but he invented it.
Yeah, Dalton came up with it, but I don't know what it's probably just like came out of nowhere, like it just made it happen, right?
So since we're using Halium to kind of get Ubuntu Touch on Android devices, is there much collaboration needed with the Android developers to maintain device support?
It's not needed. It's not necessary, and it hasn't been for the time span that Halium exists right now. But
cool.
We would benefit off of a few things if the collaboration with the Android developers was there, for sure, no doubt. But the question could also be, who are you collaborating with? And that's a bunch of people. Like we have projects like LuneOS, which is WebOS, continued. There is Droidian. So if anyone wants Debian for their phone based on Android, they can get that. Also installable with the UBports installer, mind you. So the Pixel 3a and a bunch of other devices, they already have support for this. You just select Droidian or potentially other operating systems, install them onto your device, and that's it. And Sailfish OS is also a very interesting project distribution out there, because we also benefit off of a few things that they create and that we contribute to, including libhybris, or sensor frameworks and other things that we slowly migrated over to those components to ease the maintenance. But yeah, those are just a few of the projects that are involved. The most notable ones, and there are probably very many, there are many other volunteers working on libhybris for their own use cases. So there are many distributions, there are many volunteers, there are many people making use of it, and it grows very, very well. So things work, and everyone benefits off of it.
Yeah. If anybody makes their way to the UBports website, they'll see lots of supported devices. How many devices are there, and what's the process for supporting a new one?
So currently with Xenial, we have around 56 devices. Not all of them are in the installer, but many of them are. Most of them should be. You will get ratings or like a checklist of things that are supported on the phone, things that don't work so well. For example, the EtherCast, the wireless display desktop mode thing that we have, so that you can mirrorcast the desktop from your phone to a TV or to a monitor, whatever you want to use it with. What was the question again? I think I forgot half of what I just wanted to say.
Oh, yeah, I was asking like how many supported devices are there, which you answered. And then
Right, yeah,
what's the process
Xenial.
of supporting a new one?
So that's Xenial. For Focal, we have 5 devices right now.
Okay.
And the process of porting over a new device is pretty simple these days. We do have like this system image, this generic way of creating one single image that works across a bunch of Android devices, because Android actually introduced something called Project Treble into the mix, which allows to make a generic image work with device-specific drivers that are on a separate partition. And this way, we gain the functionality of the vendor drivers together with our system image, providing the hardware abstraction, and the Ubuntu Touch rootfs can make use of that easily. So I would suggest to take a look at the documentation on halium.org and UBport's websites. Usually it takes around 2 days of hacking around with it to get something on the screen. But the perfection of a port, the maintenance of a port, the making it work reliably is sometimes a little harder, depending on the device that you're trying to port. So we have Qualcomm devices behaving differently. We have MediaTek devices behaving completely in a different way. So it always depends, but getting into it and having something to be happy about because it draws something on the screen is pretty quick to get.
Cool. So I know that Mir is a fundamental aspect of Ubuntu Touch. But Alan, and I know you had mentioned like some other shells. What are some of the larger like projects and goals, maybe things that we can look forward to in Mirland?
Okay, well, the one product we're pushing from the Mir team at the moment is Ubuntu Frame, which is intended for Internet of Things devices, typically running Ubuntu Core, and driving screens with one full screen application. You can have multiple screens and multiple applications if you want to, but it's primarily focused about here's an application running on a full screen. And you see this in all sorts of scenarios. You can see this in controlling machinery. You'll find there's a screen. You need something to control putting the pixels onto that screen and interacting with the user on that basis. So we're handling touch events typically and passing them through to an application. And that application can be written with any of your standard toolkits because we're supporting standard the Wayland protocol for driving things. So you can write your application in your toolkit of choice, Qt if you like. It's very popular. And we will put it on the screen, and with the Snaps community, Snaps architecture and the support around that, that covers a lot of the deployment issues to do with putting those things out. So Mir is running in kiosks, it's running in smart mirrors, it's running in device control things, and we have a number of canonical customers for that. But Mir obviously was designed originally to be convergent and handle a much wider range of things. So we've got the Internet of Things, single application type things with Frame. We've got the UBport story with Lemiri, which is running on anything from a phone to a desktop these days. And we've got Miriway, which is the framework for putting together a much more lightweight desktop environment than you've got with the GNOME shell, for example.
Yeah.
I can already see people tweaking their Mir-based desktops like to just be perfect to them with Miriway.
Alan, since you mentioned that Mir is cross-distro, but it is a canonical effort, I'm curious, what does that community contribution story look like?
Well, it's like most open source projects. We're hosted on GitHub, so people can come along and raise issues or make merge proposals, and we will review those as in any other project. We're open about what we're doing. People can come along, and people have come along and helped.
Nice.
I know about the different distros that we're into the archive for because people have come along and said, this isn't building on this, here's the fix for it. And we merge the fix, and it's typically a header that doesn't work quite the same way across all the different systems, or they're running a newer compiler than is in the current release of Ubuntu, that sort of thing. But we've had some big contributions, particularly from people in the UbiPorts community. A lot of our X11 support comes from Maria Scripsgard, who's a key member of the UbiPorts community. He started that effort off for us. It's been refined a bit since, and it now works really nicely.
Yeah, that was going to be another question, is how much do you cater to the needs of UbiPorts? And it sounds like heavily.
Well, we're aware of them. We don't do things that we know will break their efforts.
Yeah.
And I've tried to make sure that they've always got a way to move forward onto the latest version of Mir, which is not an easy thing because their project branched off quite some time ago now.
Yeah. But I do have to say that the relationship with the Mir team is so good that I don't see much of a difference between the UbiPorts development team and the Mir team. I mean, there are sure there are differences. There's a boundary there, but other than that, it's a very well integrated like little dance.
Nice. And then Alfred, where would community folks find you all to, like, for if they wanted to contribute or if they just wanted support? Like, where would you direct people to go?
So if you're interested in contributing to the project, we have many different Telegram groups. We also have matrix channels and bridges. They're all on ubiports.com's list of resources that you can get and like join the different channels. And the source code nowadays is hosted on GitLab. We moved everything over from GitHub to GitLab, but the source code is available there. The Halium bits are on GitHub/Halium. So whatever you want to contribute or whatever you want to see on your devices with Ubuntu Touch or Halium, those resources are pretty much very easily accessible. We have very sophisticated documentation too, which is quite a requirement for making sure that people are able to port Ubuntu Touch to their devices based on Android or maybe something else. But yeah, those are a few links that you can get.
Cool. One final thing. So Lucy is a prominent snap crafter, and so one of the questions is, does it support snaps? I know you all mentioned clicks. Is there still a difference between clicks and snaps? Does it support snaps today?
There is. Well, the clicks, as Alan mentioned earlier, they are like a spiritual predecessor to snaps, but that makes snaps and clicks very related because they use certain base technologies on both sides. So AppArmor, other things that are very, very similar in concept. The Ubuntu Touch story is a little slightly differently running because we have this hybrid approach where the rootfs is pretty much looking like a typical Ubuntu desktop, but the snaps could be installed as well. And I actually have made some experiments with that. I actually made you saw the screenshots earlier with VS Codium and LibreOffice running. Those were snaps, and they ran pretty well. They were running on Wayland-based code paths, so using Wayland to present the windows, and it just works, right? So the problem is getting people or getting the development onto snaps more. Maybe have like, I don't know, like we need to figure out a few things around how do applications work on it and how is the integration, because clicks are very well integrated at the moment, and we don't want to lose that type of integration, this tight thing running so good on the phone. We don't want to lose that, and it probably needs some integration as well on that side. But it's possible, and a proof of concept already worked. So I hope. I heard about people trying to toy with the same idea as well. making snaps work on Ubuntu Touch, and let's see where that goes. I hope to see something.
Another good question from this random person. When
Marius,
when
why
would
you do
you?
this to me? Well, we have this meme about upgrading our queues not frequently enough for the taste of some developers, but it works fine the way that we use it. And actually, thinking of it, many people are actually coming from KDE, for example, and seeing that they are on the edge of Qt development, and they always poke fun at us, and we're so late to the party when Qt 6 actually arrives on Ubuntu Touch, but it will probably happen in the future anyway. So hang in there, we will get it. And Marius, we have to do things.
I'm curious. You mentioned that some people are coming from KDE. That makes me think of Plasma Mobile, and then also there's like Pure OS for like the Librem 5 phone. Do you keep an eye on what those projects are doing and try and like, take inspiration from some new ideas, or make sure there's like feature parity in some areas? Just do you watch those and for like inspiration?
Sometimes, yes. Especially not only with the big players. Of course, we also think about other projects and how they approach, or at least, I mean, in this case, I probably can only speak for myself, but I do see it from other people as well. They really want something that is competitive enough to work as a daily driver. And Plasma Mobile has some very nice ideas here and there. So it's probably worth taking a look at how they solve things. It's also worth taking a look at how their apps work and bringing those apps over to Ubuntu Touch, and vice versa as well. Because everyone benefits off of that. And it shouldn't be too hard to get the Lumiri UI toolkit running that is based on Qt, running on Plasma Mobile as well. And actually, that's one of the things that they advertised back when they announced it. So Ubuntu Touch apps working with some modifications was one of the things they mentioned on the website back then. And it's totally possible. So we can learn something from them. If they want to learn something from us, that's fine too. Yeah, everyone benefits.
Yeah, very good. Well, so since we did ask about snaps, I am going to ask, is it possible to run Flatpaks on Ubuntu Touch as well?
Someone in the community also tried and dabbled in that area, and it seems to work as well. Not everything. So I do think Flatpaks actually had a problem with spawning the on-screen keyboard, making it pop up, and so that you can enter text into an application. But other than that, it looked very promising, and there are multiple ways. I even made, due to the Winebox thing that I mentioned earlier, this wine thing, we can actually run app images for Intel systems on ARM hardware as well, in some cases, in interesting cases, actually. So Discord as a app image works as well. So there are many possibilities, just needs people working on them.
Yeah, app image was my next question. So very cool. Thank you both so much for your time and explaining to the community what Mir is and Ubuntu Touch if they didn't know. I suspect that most of our viewers did know, but just in case, it's nice to know that Mir is not dead. It is very active, and Ubuntu Touch thrives on it. And excited to see that list of supported devices growing in the community as well. So that's all for now. I'll say that the next Indaba is going to actually be May 5th because it will be at the end of an engineering sprint, and it will be on the Lunar Lobster release. So join us for that. That'll be fun. But yeah, I think that's it for today. So please reach out and take a look at these awesome projects, and we'll see you guys next time. Okay, bye.
Bye.